Hi guys, on today's episode of Random Sewing Alterations, I will be working on two pieces of my little girl's wardrobe. I will be dealing with knit fabrics and gathers, fixing two of her favorite dresses for this season. Nothing special really, but as many people are intimidated by knits, I thought it might be a good opportunity to show that they are not that scary. So stick around if this is something that you find might be useful. This is a new dress that I destroyed in the washing machine. Thankfully, the stains are only over the bottom part, and I plan to replace it to save the dress. I have two pieces of t-shirt fabric here that are similar to the original in composition and color. It's hard to find an exact matching shade, but it doesn't matter that much as it would go under the butterfly mesh. This tones down the difference. I think I will go with this one as it looks a little better. First, I need to detach the skirt from the top part. I unpick the waist seam all around until the skirt is off completely. I will use the skirt piece as a pattern and cut out the new skirt. I'm adding some seam and hem allowances as well. I've also decided to lengthen the underskirt a bit so that it matches the top piece. So this is the new skirt piece. I'm checking with the top layer to see if the length matches, as I don't want it to hang under the top layer. It seems okay to me, so I will continue to sew the dress together. First, I'm going to make the side seams. Then I will search at the hemline to make it even and sort of hem it. I ensure that my seam settings are okay to properly sew one layer of this stretchy knit without threads popping later. The next step is to gather the skirt to match the top part. The two skirt pieces are different in width and therefore require a different amount of gathering. One possibility here is to gather each layer individually until it matches the top and then sew them together. I prefer to join the two skirt pieces first. As the bottom layer is stretchy enough to match the top layer, I will sew it as I would sew a neckband. I'm going to pin it at the side seams, center front and center back, and sew both layers together by pulling the shorter one just enough to match the longer one as I go. I go from pin to pin, ensuring that the fabric is distributed evenly and the gathering will be consistent around the waist circumference. Next, I will gather the skirt to match the top of the dress. I use a straight basting stitch and go all around without locking the seam and leaving the thread tails at the end. Next, I will use the thread's free end to push and pull while creating the gathering. I try to distribute the gathering evenly until the skirt matches the top. Then I pin the top to the skirt at center front, center back, and the side seams and face sides together. To keep everything in place, you can put more pins if you prefer. I sew the top and bottom together. And this is how the dress turned out. The second dress is too short already. It also has this unattractive stain that wouldn't come out on the front. I wouldn't bother as she has many other summer dresses, but you know Elsa is on this one. My idea is to shorten the dress so she can wear it as a top. To begin, I must detach all the gathered layers that start from the waist down. In most cases, I would unpick the seams because I don't want to shorten the garment too much. But in this particular case, shortening is what I aim to do, and that's why I skip the pleasure of unpicking serger threads and cut the seam out with the fabric scissors. I carefully cut out the seam even as I go all around. This is what the dress looks like after removing the skirt. I need to give it some finishing, but hemming is not an option because it's already a tad short. I'm thinking of reattaching the mesh layer to give it a cute finish and keep the length. I'm cutting it out carefully as I don't want to invest time into breaking the seam. I cut it close to the seam so I don't lose much from the length. The serger seam is usually around 5 mm wide, so I will not lose much length by cutting it out. Sometimes that would work, sometimes these 5 mm are too much, so I would rather unpick the seams. It depends on the project I'm working on. Here's the piece that I'm going to work with. It is at least twice as long as the top, so I need to gather it enough to match. I have two options. I can gather it using the serger, or I can use a straight stitch and gather by hand. Sergers usually have a gathering option in their settings. Mine is on the side here. When you set it, the fabric gets gathered as you sew. I often use this option, but today I will gather with a straight basting stitch. It's because the serger won't gather as much as I need, and I need a lot of gathering here. I also want to match the top piece as a circumference. I will have much more control over the gathering when I do it by hand. I am setting the stitch length high so I can sew a basting stitch and sew close to the edge of the fabric using the presser foot as a guide. I go all around the piece of fabric that I want to gather. I don't lock the seam at the end. I need the threads to be free so I can pull them to create the gathering. I try to distribute the gathering evenly and I go until the ruffle matches the top's size. Then I pin the ruffle to the top face size together and match at the side seams. The last step here is to sew the top and the ruffle together. I want to share a little tip for when you don't have enough matching threads for your serger. I like to use a bobbin for 1 or 2 needles as they consume less thread than the loopers. This way I don't have to stock dozens of thread cones. Here's how it came out. I hope you find this video helpful if you are considering altering clothes. If so, please like it, subscribe and hit the bell for updates. If you use any of my tutorials to fix or make something on your own, tag me on Instagram at Sewing for a Living so I can see it and love it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!